I'll leave it to Adam to go into further detail. Sorry, Tom, to go into further details on that. This special purpose vehicle. And my third point for the call-in was on the architectural significance. English Heritage are saying that the Conservation Area and 20th Century Society has Cressingham as Building of the Month. And there's no mention in the minutes of the Save British Heritage's letter sent to Liv Peck, who said that they will fund a full public inquiry where they will provide specialist architects and surveyors who will produce a detailed and reliable financial report for refurbishment. But there is nothing of this in these papers. I think it's deeply ironic that in the Lambeth Council Heritage Festival held in September, Cressingham is championed as one of the estates to go and visit. Now, I have another concern that's come to light since this. I would like it to be the officers to answer this question. Can you confirm that Tibbalds, an urban planning firm, have been hired to start drafting master planning objectives? If so, this is in clear breach of the Lambeth Constitution that states no cabinet decision can be implemented until 5 clear days after the publication of a decision. I would like this to be thoroughly investigated. Now, finally, Liv said at the March cabinet meeting, which I was at, and I know because I wrote it down myself, no one will move off the estate whilst it's regenerated. But it doesn't say that in the minutes. All they say is best endeavours will be made. Now, what implications are there for the minutes not being accurate? The Department for Communities and Local Government says this is the only important record to help the electorate keep local councils to account and hold them to account. On such an important promise, this should have been recorded verbatim. Otherwise, all sorts of wriggling can happen. If you look at page 20 of your papers, at 2.17, the language becomes unhelpfully obfuscatory, shall we say, where it says, as far as possible, they will not be made homeless as a consequence of regeneration. I'm now going to hand over to people who can give more detail to those 3 points that I have raised in this column.
Not yet.
Not yet?
No.
Okay.
I think what we'll do
sure.
is we'll let Councillor Bennett respond in full to what you've said, Councillor Ainsley, and then on each specific point I'll ask the people who have indicated they want to speak to give us their views, and then we can hand over to the committee, if that's right. Councillor Bennett, if you could, obviously we've got the written response to the written parts of Councillor Ainsley's calling. Obviously you can refer to them in passing, and also perhaps you can deal with the kind of supplementary points he's just made, please.
Okay, Chair, thank you very much. What I'll do just briefly was go back and just frame again the reason for decisions both in March, which was when refurbishment was ruled out, and that was a decision that wasn't called in, that's when that decision was taken. And then again around the reasons for the decision that was taken in July, and I will do my best to pick up the points that Councillor Ainsley has made, and I've taken notes, but if I miss anything, I'm sure you won't hesitate to let me know that I've overlooked it. So, to go back a couple of years, back in March 2012 when we launched the Lambeth Housing Standard Works to bring all of the estates in the borough and all council housing in the borough up to the Decent Home Standard and then also to the Lambeth Housing Standard, we said at the time that based on the current estimates of how much money was available to the council within the housing revenue account, bearing in mind that the grant that was due to Lambeth, anticipated grant of 250 million was reduced to just 100 million, we estimated we were going to be £56 million short of being able to fund improvements to council housing. And we said at the time, or Cabinet at the time said, that there were 3 ways in which that could be addressed on other estates. Firstly, we could get more money from government. Secondly, we could stock transfer to a housing association, who would then most likely undergo estate regeneration, or regeneration was the third option. And I think we know that more funding from government is not going to happen. Stock transfers to housing associations are no longer a viable way forward for all sorts of technical reasons around housing finance, which simply leaves two options of either leaving estates with no hope of investment for existing tenants, or to go down the route of regeneration. And I would just point out that in the changes we've seen since the general election to housing finance, particularly around the HRA, and we put this in the July finance review, we are anticipating a hit to the HRA over the next few years of around about £30 million. And that reduction in income also affects our capacity to borrow over the next 30 years, and that loss is built into the situation. Frankly, has worsened for the borough since 2012, when one of the options would have been improved. And that is why, after significant work on the potential costs of refurbishment of the estate, where there was a lot of work with residents on what that would mean, a lot of disputes about what that would mean, we came to a best case cost for refurbishment of £9.4 million, when the business case for the LHS back in 2012 said that it should be £3.4 million. It simply wasn't affordable. And Councillor Ainsley is quite right to say that residents should have confidence in a decision, but you cannot have confidence in something that you cannot afford. You just cannot have confidence in something that is not deliverable. It's just misleading to go down that route, which left regeneration. And at the same time as we are trying to make sure that regeneration is a way that homes are all brought up to standard, it is also an opportunity to build very much needed additional housing in this borough. We've seen over the last few weeks housing associations, who we've previously been able to rely on providing an awful lot of additional social rented accommodation in this borough. One of the largest housing associations in the country, Genesis Housing Association, has announced, as a result of changes in government policy, they will no longer build any homes for social rent, or indeed even for the much maligned affordable rent. They are just simply stopping building those homes. And as we've seen over the last few years, overall the numbers of new social homes by either housing associations or indeed by councils has dropped significantly. But at the same time as that is happening, the demand for affordable and social housing in this borough continues to go up. Between 60 and 80 families every week join Lambeth's waiting list, which is now in excess of 21,000 people, and only around 20, and in a good week 40, homes are let from that list. The demand continues to exceed the supply. And of those 21,000 people on the waiting list, we also have 1,800 families who are homeless and in temporary accommodation. That number has gone up significantly in the last couple of years for a whole range of reasons: rising rents in the private rented sector, benefit changes and others. And there are 1,300 families who are severely overcrowded. And by severely overcrowded, we mean lacking more than one bedroom. Those are families where children are growing up in incredibly cramped, poor accommodation that has a significant impact on their life chances. And if we leave things as they are, there is simply no hope available to those families in desperate levels of housing need. And I just, if you've been with me very briefly, there were two cabinet reports in July, the second one dealing with the other estates within the programme, and in which we actually, as a council, included a number of recent case studies to try and put more of a personal touch to some of those figures that can feel very remote. And just to give one example, which I know members of the committee will be familiar with families of this sort because we all see it through our casework and our surgeries. But this is a family who currently have 4 children under the age of 10. They live in a 2-bedroom home. 2 of those 4 children are disabled. Both parents have severe medical need. And despite all of that, they've been waiting 5 years for a home. And on the basis of the level of demand and the number of people who are joining and the number of people in a similar situation, they will be waiting for many, many more years to come. And with changes in policy, including the forced sell-off of council homes, void council homes, not to existing tenants, but sold off on the open market, the number of homes that will be available to families like them will go down. And it is why we have such a need as an authority to build more homes. and rebuilding Cressingham provides that opportunity to do so. And I hear people saying that, but if you want to deny those people a home,
Sorry. Everybody listened with respect to Councillor Ainsley. The process is
the truth, that's what.
Okay.
What's this got to do with scrutiny of the figures?
Answer!
Everybody, listen, I'm chairing this meeting, thank you very much.
Well, he's going to answer the
Everybody,
question.
I am chairing this meeting, thank you very much. Everyone listened respectfully to Councillor Ainsley, who also set out some context and some bits that weren't directly to do with his calling. Now I think we should give the opportunity to hear the answer, including some of the context. I think that's fair enough, and as I'm chairing the meeting, that's how it's going to be. So please listen, and then other people will have an opportunity to say, as long as you don't use up all the time. Thank you. Please continue.
thank you very much. Those are the broad reasons why this decision had to be made. And in every meeting I've been to since taking on this role of dealing with Cressingham, I've always said we would be working towards probably one option that would work. Such were the constraints placed upon us. I've said it every time this has come up. And that is why there's a broad reasons for that decision, and I want to turn now to the specific issues that Councillor Ainsley raised. On the test of opinion, and I said this at Cabinet, and I'll say it again, the Cabinet did not claim any mandate for action from the test of opinion. There's no legal requirement to have a test of opinion or a ballot. The test of opinion, which is in the pack, allows for people's direct experiences and responses to be quoted, not a tick box exercise. It's a qualitative survey. People's voices are there in their own words and recorded, but in no time have I ever claimed that it gave a mandate for action. It reported the views as recorded by an independent company. And I want to stress that the Council did not carry out the test of opinion. We hired an independent and well-respected organisation to do that in order to record and provide those views as part of this process, but it is not one of the bases for decision. Secondly, on finance. First of all, I just want to clear up one issue, and language here is not especially helpful, but I want to just try and differentiate between viability assessments that the Council's Planning Committee receives from private developers, which are detailed assessments once the planning application is prepared and they know exactly the design, the materials that are going to be used, and everything else to support that process. What is in the pack is to support the information we have to date. It is to look at potential numbers of homes, and it is a feasibility stage. To give us a broad understanding of what might or might not be deliverable, to allow us to move forward to a more detailed stage of planning. It's a staging post. It's a gateway, as it were, to let us know whether it's sensible to move forward. And in the pack, in the finance details, you'll see that there are various flexes that have been applied to look at different ways, different inputs that can be put in that would give you different results in terms of what you get out of it. And the figures that we used made sure this is the baseline. It is the worst case scenario. The financing is based on borrowing at 5.57%. That is 2.5% higher than the rate at which the Council currently borrows. We've done that to make sure that these figures are robust, that they are not trying to present something in an overly positive light. It is supposed to make sure that these are figures that we know, I can say with confidence, and I do say with confidence, give us a bare minimum position. And that's why in the recommendations at Cabinet we made clear that that bare minimum position will need to be improved upon. But the evidence, I hope, is there within the pack, within that finance assessment, to give the committee satisfaction that that's been given due consideration. One, if the borrowing costs were reduced to 4.57%, so still 1.5% above the rate at which we borrow, the number of additional social homes increases significantly. Secondly, if the number of homes that were built, even if borrowing remained at that expensive rate, were increased just by a further 60, then again, the number of additional social homes increases dramatically. In any case, we start from a base position, because it's the figure that residents were familiar with, of an additional 158, and we worked on that basis to make sure that we know with certainty that every single resident on Cressingham Gardens, if they're a council tenant, will get a new home which is in good condition, which is built to modern, high standards, and where families are not overcrowded. And I draw attention to the fact that 25% of residents on Cressingham Gardens said in the Housing Needs Survey that they lived in overcrowded conditions. And only, given the length of time people are waiting for bigger homes, only rebuilding the estate offers the opportunity of a home that meets that family's needs in terms of size. Rebuilding also on these figures, however paltry people may think they are at this point, also ensures that every homeowner is offered a home of the same number of bedrooms with a whole range of options to be able to stay on the estate, from buying outright through shared equity, shared ownership, all the way down to the possibility that if, in particular circumstances, and I'd just at this point say paragraph 2.17 is a kind of highlight list, but actually if you want to look at the very detailed key guarantees, they're set out between pages 209 and 244, not a